think it's just it's been a long tail, and is another way to describe it, I guess. I would expect in the next couple of years, of course, barring any additional shock to the economy or the housing market, that we would eventually get back to that normal rate, which is around, we show is just shy of 2%
Yeah, and that's what I
of loan
remember it as.
originations.
Uh,
So, and in some areas we're actually there already, but that's data that's still good. Vacancy. It's hard to. That's a great question. What's being overlooked? Um, but I think vacancy. One I can answer. What's some of the kind of the triggers that are most popular, and it's the vacancy data. Vacancy flag. If a property is vacant, that's a good indication. The out of state homeowners. That's a popular one. Properties that have been that are owned by out-of-state homeowners who may not be interested in trying to manage that property. Those are a couple of the popular ones we're seeing right now.
well, based on going back to the Mega.RealtyTrac system, you and I seem to enjoy it the most. Everybody else has difficulty with it. But that allows me to filter based on moves and based on utilities, correct? That those two features are still embedded within the system.
Definitely moves. I
Did they
um,
finally get rid of the utilities? I think they
Utilities,
dropped
I
one
don't
of
think
them.
are in there now. We do have more in there that wasn't. I mean, I think based on the last time we talked, we do have more in there that wasn't in there before. Demographic type information um, that may be very interesting to folks, um, in terms of determining what how likely somebody is to move. The I mean, and of course this is very morbid, but the death. I don't know if that was in there last time that we
The
talked.
deceased, yes. No,
Homeowner
it's been in there, and
deceased. Okay,
I'm a fan of it actually. Does that sound bad? It makes us sound morbid, but
it
our
does
job
sound,
is
but
in getting realtors listings at the end of the day. So
yeah. And so I would yeah, encourage people who haven't gone in there. It's maybe not the most, and this is partly just because there's so much data in there, but it can be a little bit overwhelming, especially for realtors. What we actually find is, even for real estate investors, they'll have someone go in and pull the data for them, and they'll pay them to do it, as opposed to doing it themselves, because there is it's complex. There's a lot of data that you can look at there. Yeah, what I was thinking of is the demographic overlay, that it's fairly new in there, that I don't think we had. I mean, political party is one of the things that may not be that relevant, but number of adults, household size, senior adult in household, age of children, marital status, income, number of children overall. Those things, those demographic overlays have been added that are, I think, and I'd love to get feedback, because I haven't heard a lot of feedback yet of people using that.
neither have
But I
I.
think,
I would probably have to go in and do what we enjoy doing, which is crunching numbers and breaking them down. For me, it is. I still look when I'm pointing at data. I don't know how you can overlook the number of just default the that 500,000 properties just sitting in there. NOD or list pendants greater throughout the United States. That 500,000 properties, and if I can filter those down to, let's use some of the data, like which of those are already vacant. As an investor, from a logical standpoint, why wouldn't I go in, filter 400,000, take the 400,000, start to narrow it down by, I know that they're underwater, I know that they've already moved on the property, and then try to approach these people directly since they're already out of the property. From an investor standpoint, even for a realtor standpoint, these are people that have already demonstrated that they no longer have any interest in the property. It's underwater in some cases. So now
yeah.
I've got the opportunity of getting it below fair market value as an investor as well, or to sell. It makes it easier. I'm fascinated. I don't see how more people aren't using this data. What is is it getting that much traction from your standpoint? Do you see people still buying a lot of data?
Yes, I mean, where our focus has become a little bit less toward individuals consuming the data, which would be the mega platform, although we definitely still see interest there. But it's less of our focus because we can go out and sell the data in bulk to a company
Sure.
that is going to, and they can add value to the data. Honestly, that our bailiwick is providing the data. There are the companies that can come in and provide predictive analytics on top of that, and say, okay, we can start scoring these properties for their likelihood to list in the future, in the next 90 days. And so folks are doing that on top of our data and adding value to it, which we're just fine with, and we'll sell that in bulk all day long. And I would say there's definitely interest in that side of things. I did want to add on to what you were saying. Maybe an overlooked piece is that I really like what you said about the NODs, because a lot of the focus right now from some of the bigger investors is going to the banks and try to purchase the bank-owned properties, or going even to the foreclosure auction and trying to purchase there. But if you're an investor or a real estate agent, an overlooked area is the NOD. It's tougher because you do have to approach the homeowner directly. But one of the things that we're seeing shift, and this has been for the last few years, it's nothing brand new, but we're seeing more and more of this, is a lot more NODs. People who are in default actually have equity, which is a crazy thing.
It's mind-blowing. We just picked up 3 deals this week and $200,000 in equity. And one of their rational points of view, this is Orange County, this is Fullerton and Brea recently, and their rational point of view was to, just let the bank take it and we'll get whatever we get back out of the property. That's mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. And one of the things, an outgrowth of that is more, these properties go to the foreclosure auction, and sometimes there's actually enough to pay off all the lien holders, and there's extra left over for the homeowner, and they do get that, but they probably get more if they sold prior to the foreclosure auction. But I just talked to a foreclosure attorney who's seen more of this, and this is also in Southern California, what they call surplus funds at the foreclosure auction. And she said, we just cut $100,000 check for a homeowner who there was that much surplus, and she said that's rare. That kind of money is surplus is rare, but it's becoming more common, and that's really an opportunity. It's really, when I first started with RealtyTrac, it was 2000. And now ATTOM, I should say. It was 2001, 2002, and the investors I was talking to then, they were doing exactly that. They were going, because most of the homeowners had equity in their homes, but somewhat irrationally were allowing their properties to go into default.
It's still shocking to me, being in banking and real estate as long as I have. I don't ever see the point of foreclosure. I just can't mentally wrap my brain around doing nothing. You always have the opportunity of selling. It's not, when I started in '88 doing asset management, it made sense because you were pressed out and banks weren't as open to negotiate. You had third liens. I mean, it's not a modern climate where rationally we can get true projected values. We know what the bank is losing. We just live in a different age where, you can liquidate in all situations from the bank standpoint, and they want to do it. And recently, and this will be of note to you, recently we were just doing a coaching call, and David Bartels, who still negotiates short sales, said 2 different banks are still giving back $10,000 on moving costs for people that were underwater, even though they don't have to do it anymore. They stopped all those programs. So it just shows that the banks really sell I wish there could be a way to reach those 500,000 and go, the bank really wants to do something, period. And I don't know why agents don't take up that mantle more often, because my stance has been this over the last couple of years. if you can tell me that there are 500,000 expired listings for you to go after in the United States, go after them full gusto. But I don't believe, even here in Southern California, I don't believe that I can go into Orange County, into somewhere like Fullerton, and find 40 expired listings to go do direct marketing to. I can find 40 people who have a notice of default or a notice of sale and go do marketing to them, and I know their message. And from the standpoint of, I'm really baffled by real estate agents in the current market. I don't know what they seem to be holding on and waiting for based on where we're going. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. We know all these things to be true. Does it look like any of this is going to dynamically change over the summer?
What going to change?
I should say
the
inventory or the sources for where people are finding listings, or do you see any shift? Like, are new homes going to come in line in great bulk? Is there suddenly going to be an REO release? Is there anything on the horizon that would change our day-to-day business?
Not nationally, no. There's some regional stuff going on. Florida may see an uptick. We did see in REOs, and at a few other areas, we did see just another kind of round of clearing out of old legacy inventory, but that's been going. It's nothing that's going to shock the system. So yeah, I guess the short answer is no, not a huge change that we're anticipating. So I think, inventory, I think we may be in a new low inventory environment. Builders are ramping up to a certain extent, so that could change the equation a bit, but they're still being pretty cautious. And so I think we're in a different environment than we were 10 years ago. And I'd rather have this scenario just from a macro market perspective.
Sure.
But certainly it can be frustrating for the realtors who aren't realizing that there has been this shift and they need to evolve and change with it.
I can't stress how important that dynamic shift was. And I guess it was about 2010 when we brought on those trusts and we saw the emergence of Blackstone. I don't think any of us, and I'm sure that, as I recall, I was probably the one going, where are the REOs and why aren't they on the market? That's always been one of my stances. But I didn't think then, and even watching it over the years, I didn't know how dramatic it would be to the overall inventory number to watch auction.com, to watch these properties being sold in bulk to investors, to the impact of the market. I really think real estate agents believe that someday they're going to wake up and lots of people are going to want to sell. And I'm kind of with you. This is the new number. It's not going to really improve. And you've looked at the housing start numbers, and I recently read a report, and I think, Lawrence, you made note of this. New housing starts aren't going to be enough to catch up to this, are they?
No, I mean, we're still below the housing start number is still below its historic, not long-term norm. It's broken the million figure mark, million housing starts mark on an annualized basis, but the historic average is more like 1.5 million. And so given household formation and population growth, then no, I mean, the low inventory is with us to stay. I think for at least the foreseeable future, and until there's even if there's it doesn't mean home prices will keep going up perpetually or as quickly as they have. But even if there's a pullback in demand, it's hard to foresee the type of bubble bursting that we saw 10 years ago because we don't have that huge supply sitting around.
Okay, so I'll always ask, as we start to wind this down, my crazy conspiracy theories of if the investors, the Wall Street firms, the people who created the trusts back in 2010, how many properties would it take? Do you have any idea, roughly, if people decided to start liquidating their holdings and we did see a rush of REOs to the market and shock the system, are we so low that we'd actually absorb it at this point?
I think so. I mean, when you look at the big guys, the half a dozen hedge funds, I mean, even collectively, they own